When you're in the largest museum complex in the world, there's so much to see, and so little time.
Come on, come on, come on. American History Museum, come on. Pop quiz. How do these things go together? Trick question. These objects have nothing in common, or do they? Because here at the Smithsonian, with 136 million objects and counting, any one object can seem, well, random.
But there's nothing random about it.
I'm Tom Cavanagh, and I'm going behind the scenes at the Smithsonian to see how 136 million objects can add up to one big ball of creativity and ingenuity.
In the Smithsonian's collection, any one object can mean so many different things, and it all depends on what you make of it. For example, is this an elephant or an historic icon?
The first objects in the Smithsonian collection belong to its founder, James Smithson, a pretty random group of things. Toothpick case, 2 shirt buttons, 13 pairs of stockings, a milk jug, oh, and $15 million.
That's in today's money. It was just over $500,000 in 1838. Smithson had never set foot in America, but after he died, nearly all his worldly remains made the trip, including his body. He was buried here, inside the castle. In his will, he stated that he wanted to found at Washington an establishment for the increase and diffusion of knowledge among men. No one quite got why this English scientist wanted to do this.
It took Congress several years to decide whether or not to actually accept the donation. I can just see how that went. Oh, we'd like to give you $15 million. What for? Knowledge. We'll get back to you. But after 10 years, that's right, a decade of hemming and hawing, Congress finally accepted the donation in 1846. And now, the Smithsonian includes all these buildings. And so began our obsessive-compulsive collecting disorder, OCCD.
The Smithsonian collects a little bit of everything, and a whole lot of some things. Take photography, for instance.
Good morning, sir. May I check your ID, please?
Oh, yes,
Whatever building you're in,
sir.
you can't get away from it.
There you go. Here's my picture. I don't feel I nailed the picture. I think I should have had an open mouth smile.
Okay,
I mean, did you
sir.
have a special photographer take your
Sir,
picture?
don't worry about my ID.
Okay, all right.
Yours,
That's okay. All right, thank you. Thank you. Have a good day.
The Smithsonian has over 13 million photographs in 700 collections. Their collection covers practically everything, and every subject anyone ever took in high school. History, biology, physics, anthropology, geography, and of course, art. They have more than 13,000 pictures of birds, and millions of pictures of people. Most of them were taken by pretty good photographers, too. In 1841, Englishman William Henry Fox Talbot patented the process of making paper prints from a negative. He envisioned that the new science of photography had unlimited possibilities. Among other things, he foresaw that it would be useful for inventories of possessions for insurance, studies of architecture, and oddly, for copying patterns in lace. I'm now going to go find a photographer that helped transform photography into high art.
Sometimes it's a little hard to find out where you're going in the Smithsonian. East wing, left wing, right wing, north wing. You know what you do then? You wing it. Shannon.
Tom.
Ansel.
Adams.
American history curator Shannon Parrish is our guide.
Thank you.
She's going to let us into the black and white world of the famous photographer Ansel Adams. His images from nature explore the ever-changing relationship between shadow and light.
What is this?
This is like the Walk of Fame.
The Walk of Fame.
Walk of Fame. Many famous photographers reside in these boxes. Well, they don't reside, but
Yeah, I was going to say.
reside.
Wow, they're really small, smaller than I thought.
They are. They compact nicely.
And bingo, Ansel Adams.
There he
Speaking
is.
of famous photographers.
Exactly. We have 25 photographs by Ansel Adams. He donated half of the collection, and we purchased half of the collection.
How much did that run you? You're not allowed to tell me.
Well, I'll tell you, we paid $25 a print.
What?
That's a deal.
Do you know how much people pay for an Ansel Adams print these days?
I sure do know. We're not really interested in the monetary value of these photographs. We're interested in the historic value.
That's the party line.
That's
but I'm talking to
exactly
some
right.
people here who are like, booyah, cha-ching.
Yeah, it's a reality.
Sure. Can we take a look?
Absolutely.
Boy, you just grab it like that.
Just like that. Very slowly.
Don't drop it.
Beverly.
Okay.
Don't scare me.
That's all right.
Ansel Adams marched to the beat of his own drum from the time he was a young boy, growing up in San Francisco in the 1910s. He taught himself piano at age 12. He avoided formal schooling, dedicating himself to long walks in nature instead. In his 65-year career, Adams raised landscape photography to a whole new level.
So Tom, this is a unique set of photographs put together by Ansel Adams and the curator of photography at the time. There it is.
Famous. This is one of my favorites.
This is Sunrise, Lone Pine. Can I tell you a secret about this one?
Yeah, it's fake.
It's fake. No, it's not fake. There's something in the negative that he blocked out. So the local high schoolers would climb up in the mountains and paint a big LP for Lone Pine High School. And if you look very carefully, you can see the LP.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
There's a little gem there that you can look for.
That's fantastic. Well, he was known as a fellow who would do a lot of dancing in the darkroom, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Trying to get his picture just right. And he would go back and revisit for different photographs, correct?
Absolutely.
Adams thought of the negative as something malleable. He never wanted to print a photograph exactly the same way twice, because he said each print represented how he felt at that specific moment. Each print was a performance.
Adams, for a time, was a concert pianist. I like to think of his photographs as little symphonies.
Nice.
And he treated the negative as a score of music. And I heard somebody describe him say one time that there are 88 keys on the piano, and you have to know how to play all 88. And so when you come to the dark room, you have to know how to play all 88 keys with your print. The blacks are blacks, the whites are white, and then you have everything in between, all those gray tones.
Adams created the famous zone system that's still used today. It divides the continuous range of black to white into 11 discrete steps and provides an exposure setting for each step. His basic rule was expose for the shadows, develop for the highlights.
He's a bit of a perfectionist.
Right? That's one word for it.
I love it.
This is Adams's most iconic photograph, and that's for two reasons. One is because it has a great story, and there's only one negative.
Only one negative.
Only one negative.
Moonrise, Hernandez, New Mexico, 1941. Captured in a random moment, it's a picture that almost didn't get taken.
So there's Adams. He's driving along in 1941. He looks over his shoulder and he sees what he describes as the inevitable photograph. So he sees it as a finished print before he ever even gets out of the car. He pulls over to the side of the road, jumps out, is yelling instructions, how to get the what equipment to get out. He obviously is not using a point and shoot. And unpack it, unfold it, get the bellows stretched out, get the tripod stable.
Adams used a large format view camera, similar to this one. It was not a snap to set up and load. With a view camera, the photographer can see the whole image he's shooting, upside down, on an 8 by 10-inch screen of ground glass. With the sun sinking, Adams was losing time.
So you can imagine, there they are, the sun is fading, they've opened up the camera, they've got the bellows out, they've focused it, lens cap is on, you've got it focused, you've got to get it in place, pull the slide, you take the lens cap off, count, put the slide back, cover, and all this time the sun is moving. Flip it over, the sun is now gone.
Down.
Adams usually exposed at least 2 slides for a picture, but this lone negative went on to be counted among his favorites. He eventually made 1,000 prints by hand of Moonrise, Hernandez, New Mexico, 1941. One recently sold for $609,000 at auction.
Part of what makes anything emotional or relevant is how it makes you feel. And I think many people gazing upon Adam's work would say it certainly makes them feel.
Absolutely. And that is exactly what Adams would have wanted.
When some people think of the Smithsonian, they might think it's mainly a random collection of objects from dead things. But a big part of the Smithsonian is very much alive.
Gary, they need you over in violins.
I mean, besides the more than 4,500 people that work here. I'd like to show you another part of the Smithsonian that's pretty lively. But to do that, I gotta leave the mall and run across town.
One of the biggest attractions at the Smithsonian isn't a museum. It's the National Zoo, where more than 2 million people come to visit more than 2,000 animals every year.
The National Zoo was founded in 1889, and 1 year later, it became part of the Smithsonian. It was the first zoo where one of the primary aims was the preservation and breeding of native animals. They saw it as an important reminder to visitors of the disappearing American wilderness. Today, the zoo is an important part of the Smithsonian's mission to educate, bringing the life of animals up close to millions of people.
It's like a zoo in here. All these people are professional zoo visitors. So a lot of these people have been trained in, say, like the San Diego Zoo or Bronx Zoo. They become really good visitors, and then they get to, come here. The National Zoo.
The zoo extends the collecting mission of the Smithsonian into the realm of the living. There's really nothing that the Smithsonian is not interested in. The only difference is, here the things we are preserving and learning from have to be fed. No one cares if this squid is happy. And to keep animals healthy and happy, this is an important tool. Getting an animal to touch his nose to a target is useful for zookeepers like Linda Moore.
We're actually target training these guys to get them close to the scale so we can weigh them. And this way they get used to us moving them around the enclosure. We can get them in crates by using these targets.
Training is key to the management of this collection because it helps to make animals cooperative patients for their health checkups and to minimize stress. And it all happens behind the scenes.
When they hear the click, they'll know that they've done the correct behavior and they know that the treat's coming for them pretty soon. Ocho!
Many of the animals are too dangerous to get close to without some method of control. Without this tool, animals would have to be anesthetized for their examinations, which most of them don't like.
May target?
The animals make it look easy.
Top target.
For me, this is the 112th take.
Here, Buzz.
Of the 400 species of animals at the zoo, about 1 in 5 get formal training. Keeper Jenny Spotton takes care of 15 animals at the zoo, including the sloth bears. Let's find out what it's like to be a curator when your collection can bite back.
This is where the bears are.
Yeah, you're gonna meet.
When sloth bears were first discovered, scientists thought they were a species of sloth, and they were called bear sloths.
That's a mother and
her 1-year-old cub.
Oh, fantastic.
These guys are found in Southeast Asia, parts of India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, that area.
Are they pretty much herbivores, or?
These guys are considered carnivores.
They are, huh?
They're in the carnivore family because they are true bears.
Whoa!
But they'll eat just about anything.
Stay over here from the cage.
That's Hannah that just attacked me, protecting her cub, Bala, from too much publicity, probably.
These guys are very powerful, and they've been actually known to kill people.
Hello. Yeah, I'll be staying out here. Thank you.
So we do not go with these guys at all.
You don't?
No, not at all. This is as much interaction as we have.
Although they are darn cute.
They are, really, aren't they? You're welcome to feed them if you want.
Oh, I can feed them?
Yes, but you have to use the tube. Just grab a handful of
Grubs.
grapes. We have a good mix in here, actually. There you go. Put your hand. It's okay.
Look at this. Hi, Death Trap.
All right, and just hold it to the end.
Hold it to the end.
Yep.
And then they say, oh, that's awesome. And they just suck that in there.
Yeah, these guys are highly specialized to eat termites in the wild, and what they'll do is they'll pull the termite mounds open with those claws you guys saw, and then they'll just suck them right in.
That's awesome.
Now, how many curators can say that anything in their collection can suck up grubs? And that's not all. These guys have lots of tricks.
Paws. Good. So that way we can check his claws. They often lose their claws like a cat would shed their claws. Open. You can check his teeth. You can check his gums.
This certainly seems a better way to check an animal's teeth than this. In circuses or menageries, training animals to mimic human behavior can get easy laughs. But researchers are discovering that this can also inhibit an animal's ability to get along with his own kind. So the zoo is careful to respect the animals. They're trained to do natural behaviors or abilities on command to help educate zoo visitors about the animal's habits.
Imagine it goes over a stream, a ravine, there's been a drought, and Beacon needs to get...
The emphasis is on encouraging appreciation for the animal's wildness. This tiger would be laughed right out of the Tiger Club.
It's not the best paying job. You know, there's some unglamorous parts. You know, of course, these guys poop.
Yeah, they
a
poop.
lot.
Yeah, sure.
So we have to clean that up, and he's now chewing on his own foot. We do this job for the love of the animals. He's very sweet.
The zoo's 400 species may seem like a random sample, but it works as a snapshot of the diversity of life on our planet. And in a planet this diverse, you just never know how something might fit in. A single object can have meaning in widely different fields of study. Take a piano, for instance, but don't take it very far.
This piano has really been around. It was initially a gift to Teddy Roosevelt in 1903, who simply wanted a piano for the White House.
It came to the Smithsonian in 1938 and has since been in multiple exhibits. The First Lady's exhibit, an exhibit about pianos, an exhibit about the artwork of Thomas Dewing, who painted the lid and sides. And it's even been in the lab, analyzed by experts in the science of paint pigments.
One piano, and it has something to say about culture, history, art, and science.
Music.
What?
Music.
Oh, and music.
Now, to the casual viewer, it may look like I'm going behind the scenes all by myself. But trust me, there's a lot going on behind the camera, too.
People often wonder what goes into making a production such as this. So we thought we'd give you an extra treat, invite you backstage, and see how our Cracker Jack staff starts their day. Come with me. We got the Capitol here. It's gonna be a big day, okay? So, Martha, you're gonna handle words. Words are gonna be very important today. Pam, you got the eye on the thing. Sarah, you're gonna handle miscellaneous. You're gonna go deep if we need you. Come back here if we need you. Aisha, you're gonna handle
Logistics.
logistics. Over to me. I'm gonna go long, deep to the Smithsonian Castle. Very, very important. 1, 2, 3, and great.
We're heading over to the Museum Support Center in Suitland, Maryland, where they keep a big chunk of the things not on display. A 31 million object chunk. It also houses labs for specialized research, and that's what we've come for.
You've heard people call the Smithsonian the nation's attic? Well, that's inaccurate. Attics are musty places where we keep things we no longer want and no longer need, whereas everything at the Smithsonian is precious. So the Smithsonian has gone to great lengths to find ways to preserve these things.
I'm heading for the laboratories of analytical biology, where they like to keep things
Cold. Very cold.
When you think of cold, you might think of Antarctica, one of the most frigid places on Earth, or maybe the dark side of the moon. But we got all the cold you need right here.
As this is reading right now, it says minus 148 degrees Celsius.
What?
Which is pretty darn cold.
These ambassadors of cool are Chris Huddleston and Lee White at the Smithsonian's Museum Support Center. They manage these liquid nitrogen-cooled cryosystems that house thousands of vials of tissue samples, mostly bird guts and insect parts. This is a high-tech extension of what the Smithsonian has been doing for 160 years, but it takes up a lot less space than drawers full of birds. The museum's collection of bones and skins and jars of specimens are invaluable for physical descriptions of species. But now researchers are studying species at the genetic level, and for that, you need well-preserved DNA. Scientists from all over the world call the lab for tissue samples for their research.
The reason to save them is to preserve the ability to do almost any application. So if you want to do population genetics, if you want to monitor some invasive species, if you want to do a tree of life or how the beetle are related to each other, we thaw them out, chop them up with enzymes or things, and extract DNA. You don't know what people are going to want to use these for. People come in and look in the bird tissues for things living in the birds that you had when you collected the bird, you had no idea that they were going to be used for that purpose.
You never know what random bit of tissue is going to be important. So saving a little bit of everything is what cryogenics is all about.
Cryo, from the Greek, to jump.
It means cold.
Right, that's what I thought. Right.
Down here at the bottom, there's 5 inches of liquid. And everything above that...
Boils, is that the correct term?
That's correct. So nitrogen as a solid, I don't even know how cold it would be. As a liquid, until a certain temperature, it's a liquid. Warmer than that, it boils off. And so that happens at a very different temperature than water by several hundred degrees.
So this is 5 inches liquid at the bottom and then just boils into...
And there's vapor air above it, which is supercooled air because of that liquid. And that's where we keep the samples. We don't immerse the things down into the liquid.
It seems to me a dicey prospect to open this up and get something out, or am I wrong?
It's not something you'd send your kids in to do, like run and get me something out of the
Kids,
fridge.
go grab me a side of lamb. Well, yeah, it's in the nitrogen stick.
Exactly.
Yeah. Whoa! Look at that.
Chris will now demonstrate why reaching into the vats with bare hands is probably not a good idea.
I was going to immerse it into the nitrogen.
Yeah. Can you hear that?
And so when you're freezing this, it becomes brittle. So you can take it, and it just tears.
Look at that. Broke it right in two.
Inside these boxes, they've got everything from ant legs to bird livers. Over 70,000 specimens and growing. All in a space the size of a refrigerator. 4 of them. They use 1,500 liters of liquid nitrogen a month to keep them cold. For space considerations at the Smithsonian, whole animals are not preserved. But if the idea of death really bothers you, freezing can be arranged elsewhere. The idea, called cryonics, has been around for about 40 years. You freeze a person, they should be dead first, and some believe that they could then be revived in the distant future and cured of whatever killed them. Hopefully, this was merely a demonstration. About 80 people, along with about 40 pets, are currently dead and frozen in the US. Now, the odds of it actually working? Well, most scientists believe cells suffer too much damage to live again after being frozen at these temperatures. At the Smithsonian, they don't expect anything they've frozen to get up and walk around again. But storing tissue from animals does have a cool conservation angle.
By saving them, it obviates the need to go collect them again. So if we've gone on an expedition and we've sampled some organisms, some birds, some fish, anything we've gotten, and we save a piece of tissue of it, if someone wants to study that group of birds or fish in the future, they don't need to go kill more birds or fish.
Oh, that's no good. So let's get that. So now that is beeping. That is beeping because this has been open.
It's telling me I left it open too long.
Keep it closed.
I'm warming up.
It needs to be closed.
And it starts filling up with nitrogen again.
Quick chill.
This is great. So it doesn't have a thing where it goes, thank you for saving my samples. You might want to get, if you want later on, we can just record voices for that kind of stuff. Dude, I'm getting cold. And then, thank you for saving my samples. Quick chill, that kind of stuff.
You want?
Yeah. Chris is like, yeah, whatever, actor boy. Yeah, that sounds great.
So let's see. We're preserving DNA. It makes you wonder if someday these tissue samples could give rise to clones of the long-dead donors. To ask that question, let's get in touch with Rob Fleischer, who heads the genetics program at the National Zoo.
Well, you have these tissues here frozen. There's no way that you would, and this is the sci-fi question, bring any of these things back, be able to bring any of these things back to life.
Well, actually, there's a possibility in that some of the species that are very endangered, in fact, one that just went extinct last year.
Rob's referring to the Hawaiian honeycreeper. Cute, wasn't it?
We actually have managed to get living tissues out of them and save them as frozen cell lines.
Really?
So they're actually stored in liquid nitrogen on the hope that sometime in the future, when we have the technology, we'll be able to bring the species back to life.
This seems to me like you're treading on something very, very, very important and very powerful with this capacity.
By all means. I mean, we were scared out of our wits by Jurassic Park, and we could bring T-Rexes
just because of the box office receipts?
Yeah.
Exactly right.
But the fact that you could possibly do that, and the thing is, we don't have the technology to do that right now. Certainly not with old extinct things where the DNA is highly degraded.
I see.
It might just be the most important act of preservation in the entire Smithsonian. Or perhaps the scariest. But don't worry, good dinosaur DNA is pretty hard to come by. For anything else, we just have to figure out how to clone their natural habitat, and then we'd be in business.
Dun, dun, dun. How can such random items as frozen
Bird tissue, Ansel Adams' photographs, and James Smithson's shirt buttons have anything to do with each other?
Well, it turns out at the Smithsonian, all these things have one big thing in common. They all preserve the past, so we can learn from them in the future.
Random, it turns out, is really not so random. We take all these millions of objects, add researchers, scientists and historians, archivists and curators, mix it all up and, well, who knows what might pop up.